There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the First Day Pod. I'm so excited to be here. We have an amazing guest with us. I can't wait to introduce her. But first, I just want to thank you guys for listening as you do every week. If you guys are new to the show, we record every week live on Facebook and on YouTube at First Day Pod at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sundays. So tune in, because my favorite part of our show is, other than the guests, is the conversations that come up in the comment section. And so we are able to interact with you guys live. And that is always really, really interesting. So you never really know how this show is going to kind of transpire. So I also wanted to thank everybody that is part of our book club. If you guys know, we do our book club every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And we are starting a new book tomorrow. And it is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It is so good, guys. Like, we're only on the first chapter. So if you haven't read it, but you want to come along anyway, come in, introduce yourselves, and you guys can start. You can come on the email us at firstdaypod@gmail.com, or you can find us on any of the social medias at First Day Pod, and we'll give you the link. It's on Zoom, really easy. It's an hour. Everybody's super friendly. And we also, don't tell Dr. Joe, but we have a free copy of the book. So if you guys don't want to go buy one, we can give you a free digital copy. So without further ado, let me introduce my wonderful guest, Melissa Tarr. She is not just the founder of Embrace Rec. She's the proof in the process of how recovery from trauma is achievable. She took her own traumatic experiences of childhood, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, and created a company that applies the same effective therapies that worked for her. Her personal experiences enable her to guide her clients through the recovery as a mentor with empathy, education, and integrity to create safe and effective programs. Her background in social work, therapeutic recreation, drama, addiction, recovery, and trauma breakthrough, as well as evidence-based services, position her as a unique community leader who is ready to help you heal. So welcome, Melissa. I am so happy you are here. Thank you for your time. We're so excited.
Well, thank you for the invite. I'm excited to be here. It's my first podcast, so thank you for breaking me in on this.
Yay.
And I'm probably going to look into your book club, because I've never been part of one of those either. So it sounds like it's going to be something exciting and kind of in the area of what I love exploring. So yeah, very interesting book that you picked, especially with me coming on today. And
funny.
I want to talk to you about the journey I went through to really find myself.
Please do.
How I came into owning my own company, which I never thought I would do. My story, unfortunately, is very familiar. Childhood trauma is a statistic that is too prevalent in our society. Mm-hmm. And so from a very young age, I experienced events that then turned me into who I am today, with a lot of trials and tribulations along the way. And oftentimes when I reflect back on those experiences, I'm thankful and I'm appreciative, because I wouldn't be here in the capacity that I'm at if I didn't embrace those specific events that happen. So from the trauma of being sexually abused at a very young age till my teen years, the mental warfare that happened during that, the psychological damage that happened, the secrecy, the overall impact really affected me for many, many years. And it wasn't until actually 2019 that I really started looking at the trauma of it.
Really?
It is, yeah. So Embrace Rec came around 4 years ago. And when I first decided to make a company, it was just everything kind of played in part. I did my first degree in drama. I was supposed to be a drama teacher, but life happened. I couldn't apply for teachers college at the time. So I decided I was going to start studying social work. Really, really loved it. I was working at a hospital at the time in mental health. And I'll very vividly remember I was studying for an exam for social work, and I had a recreational therapist walk up to me. And she said, "I think you're in the wrong field." And you really shouldn't say that to somebody who's in the
Wow.
middle of studying. And like a squirrel, my true nature, I perked up and I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Well, I think you should be in recreational therapy."
Wow.
And I had a really cool boss at the time. And she was like, "Hey, why don't you shadow our rec therapist? We were just opening up the mental health facility at the hospital. Why don't you shadow the rec therapist?" And I fell in love with it.
Did you know anything like
I knew nothing.
Okay.
But it really rang true, because when I started really understanding and studying recreational therapy, I soon realized that I was doing rec therapy without even knowing it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was using soccer. That was my big modality. I was using sport. Now, some soccer players will use soccer for exercise, for activity, for fun, for competitiveness. I was using it to release anger. So
okay.
I was
like yourself personally,
myself,
not with
personally.
clients at this point.
When I'm studying, I'm starting to get these memories of when I was a child and how I would have an experience happen of being molested. And then I would go out and I would be so angry and I would take it out on the soccer field.
Wow.
And I really internalized that. So flash forward, and I'm in my early 30s, and now I'm looking at recreational therapy, and I'm realizing that I use that as a catapult for my mental health.
Okay.
I didn't know how to work through the stuff that was happening to me.
Okay.
And so recreational therapy, what you're looking at is you're looking at healing yourself through stuff you're already interested in, through recreation and leisure. It's the idea of having fun in your well-being. So there are areas that we look at. We do assessments, and we look at either your physical, your emotional, your cognitive, your social well-being. Some people do enjoy the spiritual well-being as well. It's an area I kind of venture away from.
Okay.
But then I custom create programs. And so when I started studying this and starting to realize soccer was one, I also realized that singing was another. And what was that? What was I getting from doing these recreational activities was helping me mentally. But there was still something there. There was still a trauma that I couldn't see past. I could control the anger, but the embedded trauma, the self-worth, the low self-esteem, the anger towards authority, I couldn't get past that. And so I opened Embrace Rec with recreational therapy in mind, but I was still processing. I was still experiencing flashbacks. I was still having severe PTSD. And then in 2018, I went to a conference, and one of my soccer friends I grew up with asked me if I wanted to do a workshop with her. She was teaching it. She was a facilitator. Okay. And she wanted to know if I wanted to do what's called traumatic incident reduction. Okay. And I was like, "What is that?"
Right.
And she's like, "Well, basically what you're looking at is you become a facilitator, and your client in this one-on-one experience becomes a viewer. You take them through questions that have them go into memories. And it's a very hard process, but it gives really quick answers and helps you release triggers." So for me, that ongoing trigger of experiencing and reliving through PTSD, what had happened to me in my childhood, I was able to start viewing those memories over and over again with their guidance and breaking free from that.
Oh,
okay.
Cool.
So it was really interesting. And so I studied it. And I offered it as another modality. So Embrace Rec is kind of like a coin. You come for an initial consultation. On one side, we can decide together if we're going to look at therapeutic rec as a modality. That could include cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, all the stuff that I'm in the middle of learning as I'm applying for my master's degree in social work?
Wow.
Or do we want to look more at going right through to the memory and seeing what's holding on to you? Because like memories, they're like chains. They trigger together. They link together. So one thing will happen, and then a similar situation will happen. You'll have another response similar to that. Until we get rid of the trigger, we're going to be caught in this cycle.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
There's different ways that I'm growing so that I can offer more to my clients.
Wow. That's beautiful. Okay. So when you were doing that, the workshop with your friend, you were the facilitator. So you were asking the questions, or were you
When I did the workshop, there were a bunch of us
Okay.
that did the workshop together, and we were trained on how to do this,
Okay.
how to do the technique.
Okay.
So there's a handful of us in Windsor that specifically use traumatic incident reduction in order to help people process their traumatic experience.
Okay.
Through the workshop, I learned how to do that.
Okay.
And so now when somebody comes to me and they've experienced a trauma, I can help them through that experience.
Would that be something, I'm just gonna, because I can't do two things at once. So anybody that's listening to the podcast right now, just through audio, sorry, but I just need to, Karen.
Hi, Mom.
Hello.
It's my mom.
Wonderful. Hi. It's saying that it's cutting out when people comment. I don't know how to fix that. So hopefully in maybe the, because I've never heard that before, but maybe in the replay, hopefully that won't happen.
She just said hi to me.
Hi. And Ed is here. Ed, wonderful. Thank you. Oh, she said she's good now. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that was covered. Okay, so thank you, Karen. Okay, awesome. So this is going to be, and you're going to get used to it. Like I asked like questions that are, they might be dumb, but
no.
Okay, so if I went through like a traumatic experience as a child and I have these flashbacks, I might have a hard time wanting, yes, I want to get over it. I want to move on from it. I want to do that. I want to come and see you and I want to get help. For me, that idea of going over it again and bringing it up and going through like the incident.
Yeah,
that sounds scary. So it sounds
like it's a re-victimization.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. That's why my company's a little more unique.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody comes to me and they're having that hesitation and they're like, oh, this is terrifying, because reality is some of the stuff that we experience can be very hard. Mm-hmm. I'll take them first through 1 or 2 sessions of real high intensity therapeutic rec. Let them build some trust, build a rapport with them, because my end goal is to make them as comfortable as possible so that we can work through this really tough stuff. Yeah, and it does get hard. I'm also the person that will go through, and I created what's called a light system for my company. Okay. So I find it very unique. I remember being a kid, and I remember having to sit there and 1 week at a time, and there was no conversation, there was no communication between. So I created a system for Embrace Rec that's called the Light System. Anyone that is a client with me, they get my personal phone number, my company line. They can send me a text. If I get a red, all they have to do is text red. If I receive that, within 2 hours, I will get back to you. That means that they are in a breakdown. Okay. They need assistance right away. Now, that could look like me debriefing or me helping in that current situation. Or if it's beyond the means of what I'm capable of helping, I am perfectly comfortable of reaching out to one of my community partners. Okay, I do know Lucy from Banna. Mm-hmm. I do have other social workers in my network, and I am familiar with the crisis lines that we have.
Beautiful.
People can't be left alone, especially right now. If I get a yellow, all they text is yellow. That just means, hey, Melissa, can you call me tomorrow? There's something that has happened. It's not urgent, but I need you to help me work through this. Okay. My favorite color to get is green, because green means that they have kicked butt and they are being super successful at something, and they just want to share that with me.
Beautiful.
And that's the one that I love getting, because I love knowing that people are being successful.
Yes, that is beautiful. And Faith here. Hello, Faith. She says the light system is amazing. Knowing someone you already know and trust is there for you in a breakdown is vital and could save a life. Absolutely. That system. So did you come up with that, or is that something that's kind of in the...
No, I came up with it. I don't know if somebody else has a similar system.
That is beautiful.
But for me, I don't want my clients, when they sign up to work with me, I don't want them to feel alone. Yeah. And that was where I really struggled growing up, was always feeling alone. And by the time I got to my counselor the next week, I forgot what I wanted to tell them if it was something exciting.
Right.
So this way, and it's for, if I have a client that's a younger client, they like it because sometimes they'll tell me they wrote a story or they overcame something that was hard for them. And sometimes my older clients just want to say, you know what? I really enjoyed session today. Like, you made me really look at what was really behind the trauma. Mm-hmm. And the thing with trauma is so unique. I'm going to share a little story with you. Mm-hmm. Last summer, I was in a car accident. Okay. My fiance and I were in a car accident in her little classic Miata. Okay. The way we experienced that event was very unique. My experience as a recreation therapist and as what I do, my shoulder was injured. I was angry. I was frustrated. The person had blown through a stop sign texting, okay, looking down at a text, right? There was no severe injury. My fiance was she suffered from PTSD, more or less. She was waking up with flashbacks from the accident. And that's what people need to understand with trauma too, and when I hear people say, we're all in this together about the pandemic, we're all experiencing it, but we're all experiencing it very uniquely.
Beautiful. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Wow.
And so some of us have different coping mechanisms. I'm lucky that I have the therapeutic background in recreation, that when I'm super stressed out, I go get my bike and I go cycling. Or I recently signed up for a recreation soccer league. And
nice.
Yeah. Talk about trauma. I had an injury 4 years ago. I pulled both of my quads. Terrified to get back on the field, but soccer is my passion, as well as what helped me get through life.
Yeah.
And so I've recently signed up for Bell River. I'm playing in a co-ed league, and I'm training with my family. And today was a great day. I found that a TENS machine is fantastic. And I've come to the realization that I'm a lot older than I should be doing. I slow down a little bit.
But you're doing it. That's amazing. Congratulations. Are you going to keep it up, you think?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I'm also very big on needing to be showing my clients. If you want to set a goal for something, do it. And I was really hesitant at first because that immediate flashback of my injury came. But how can I preach and teach to overcome and not be an example? And so I've had to put some boundaries in that I'm not going to go like I'm 17 anymore. I'm going to...
Faith says you sound terrified to start on soccer again. You can hear it trembling. You're so confident when you're talking about your clients. And then as soon as you say that, you're like, and it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. But it's also being that role model for my kids too.
Beautiful.
And as you know, I have 3 kids. And
how old are they again?
My oldest daughter is 15. My middle daughter is 13. And my son is 11.
Wow.
I can't believe I got that right. And watching them go through this pandemic and the trauma that's happening to them. and them not being able to have sports and them having an increase in dependency on technology and trying to modify everything.
Yeah.
So when I saw my son kind of light up about the idea of mom playing again, we did suicides yesterday. It's a training technique.
Oh,
We
sounds
did.
awful.
It's a horrible term for a training technique, but we did different exercises and stretching, and it was really fun to be able to coach him again on how to do that stuff.
That's awesome.
But I'm not going to lie, I'm
Feeling
not the best shape. I keep joking that round is a shape, but I don't want to match the ball when I'm on the field. So anyone out there that wants to start training with me, I'm all open.
Well, you have support here. We've got a Tracy saying you can do it, Mel. And Faith is all over overcoming the fear. Yes. And she's also saying round is a shape. So I think she just means accept that. So, but you know what? At the end of all of this, just wait to see what's going to happen. Okay. So we have a couple of things. I haven't read them. So I'm just going to throw them up on the screen and we'll see. So Ed says, what support do you have for people to go through the questions? I remember going through a memory in a group session. I did not have any support after the memory. I left the group that night in such a panic. I almost attempted that evening. So now Ed, he was on our show yesterday.
I did watch his. And thank you, Ed, for being so candid and honest about your struggles. First off, when it comes to TIR, it's not a group setting. It is, I am facilitating, you are viewing. It's actually called a metapsychology. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to look up more information, Ed, look up TIR.org. just to get an understanding of what this modality does. And I would continue to work through with you so that you wouldn't experience that panic. And again, to follow up, you're not left alone. You have access to that light system. Because the last thing I want is the things that you discussed earlier in your struggles and the attempts that you did make. I don't want to see that. I want to embrace you with all the stuff that I research and I work and that helped me overcome and get you in the direction where not only congratulations on your weight loss, but you have all of that confidence, esteem, and ability to continue to take these tools and be as successful as you can in your life. Yeah. So you're not alone. And I think I agree with you. When I was going through counseling and I had to do the group setting, I was like, you don't know my experience. You may have similarities. You don't know what's going on with me. I found that the TIR was one of the best practices that I had somebody use on me. And it's why I'm so compelled to use it in my practice.
It's so inspiring. It's so wonderful. Thank you, Ed, for that question, because that's what I was thinking too, is that like, I'd be so like you leave and that's when things start coming up. Your light system is brilliant, Melissa. That is, and it's cool that the hardest one is the easiest one. It's 3 letters. So even if you're in that panic, it's just like RED, R, send, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
That is fascinating because they don't even need to tell you what's going on.
No, and that's the part of, you can go and call a crisis line, absolutely. But I already know your story. You don't have to repeat it.
Yes.
Okay. At that point, when you're in a crisis, I don't want to take you back there. I want to be and meet you right where you are and then help you get to the next place forward.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, this is so exciting. Like I didn't look too much into what you do because that's one of the things that I love doing this podcast is I don't want to be like fully informed and then I can't ask the questions because I'll just be like, yeah, I know that.
No, that's okay.
So I just thought you like, for some reason, I just thought it was like, oh, that's fine. Like my mom was like, oh, what is recreational therapy? And I said, oh, she goes and she plays sports with people and then has it open that they can like talk about whatever she needs.
No.
No clue. Like, and I was like, it sounds like it's like way deeper than that. But that seems to be what she does. This whole thing is so fascinating. Like the light system, first of all, I'm still blown away. That's why I keep bringing it up because it's
Mhm.
so simple and yet so important. So the other thing is, okay, so can you explain I mean, people know what trauma
Mhm.
is, but can you just kind of explain what trauma is, like how you interpret trauma?
Okay. So a traumatic experience can be anything. And people immediately think, oh, well, it was sexual abuse, or it was somebody who experienced a divorce, or a veteran coming back. It could be a car accident. It could be just something that your mind didn't process. And all of a sudden, you started forming these ideas about that experience, but you weren't forming it in a positive way. So then you started, like, the easiest way I can explain it when it comes to childhood trauma is something happens. And then we start growing into that idea of what happened. In that process, especially when you're looking at perhaps addiction or eating disorders, when we're trying to unravel that person, we need to go back to that first experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So trying to treat addiction is a little more challenging. And Dr. Gabor Mate is somebody I follow quite often. I love his podcasts. I love listening to him. I read his books, and he talks about inner child trauma and addiction. And it was really interesting. About a month and a half ago, I was like, oh, I want to just finish my internship for TIR. And I came across this article about the link between TIR and addiction.
Okay.
And so then it's the triangle, because it's TIR can help addiction, but you can't help addiction until you find the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this time, and in the center of that, I can throw in a high intensity recreational therapy to skill build. So you've carried this trauma for so long that has compromised your idea of yourself. Well, what about if we get you mastery in an activity that you enjoy? And you said sport, but it could be arts and crafts. It could be board games. It could be a nature walk. It could be high intensity adventure therapy. Now, I won't jump out of a plane. I have had clients ask,
Okay.
but it is on there of there are certain activities. Rock climbing. I used to take clients to the rock gym. I used to take clients to border city boxing, and teaching them how to facilitate their anger through boxing, not as a means of self-defense and to cause harm, but as to when you have so much angst and anger in yourself from
Mm-hmm.
something of an experience that has happened to you, physically using your body to release that, but in a controlled environment, is immensely positive.
It's fascinating.
So I teach people how to play again too. And it's really funny. I've had two clients in the past coin me as Mary Poppins. And
Yes.
they're like, you're like super fun, but really mean. And I'm like, I'm not mean,
Mm-hmm.
but I have expectations. And if you're going to come on board and work with me, I do everything with you. So I expect you to do it for yourself. Don't do it for me. Don't do it because somebody wanted you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Show up for yourself and be accountable for yourself.
Beautiful.
Because that's what we really need to start pushing our kids, especially. We put all these pressures and expectations on them, but they're not going to show up unless they want to do it for themselves. And they
Right.
need us to be that support for them and save them space. And especially as we go through this pandemic, that's something else that I really push, is the idea of giving people space and then offering grace to both you and them. So meeting them where they're at, giving them that space. If they're having a hard day, let your kids have a hard day.
Hmm.
Let them know it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be struggling. Teach them through modeling that they need to forgive themselves, and then understand for yourself as well. you have the place to give yourself grace, that you're not perfect, that you don't have to have all the answers.
Yes. Yes. Oh my
So,
gosh.
especially during this pandemic, everyone is struggling. Financially, suicide rates are going up. Families are breaking apart. I was blessed. As you know, I had a previous life. I married my high school sweetheart. We had 3 beautiful kids. We didn't have what I needed. And during my process of growing, I wanted to check, from all of my childhood being confused and contorted, I wanted to check all the boxes and have the family and all that, but there was something still in me that wasn't fit.
Fulfilled.
It just wasn't there. And it didn't matter what he did. He's a good person. It didn't matter what he did. I was still struggling. And I needed to be an example. I needed to be an example for my family and for my kids, that you deserve happiness too. And so I left, and I did meet somebody else, and she is an amazing person. She is the love of my life. Aww. And I am happily engaged to her now. And no, we don't have a date set. I've been asked by several people this week.
Always the next question, eh?
But I do, and I do have a great life. And kudos to my former husband. We are still excellent friends.
Oh, beautiful.
And we figured out a way to amicably dissolve a very long relationship.
How long were you guys together?
21 years, 15 together.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And he's with his new person, and she's awesome.
Nice.
And now we get to take this new direction and really work together as a team, co-parenting and trying to get our kids through this as healthy as possible.
That is so beautiful. I'm so happy for you. Oh my gosh. And I'm so excited for you. I remember we talked about it, and we had talked about the engagement, and I'm always like forward thinking. I'm always like, oh, everything is going to be amazing. So apparently I already pictured your wedding, because I was like, oh yeah, your wife. And I was like, oh shoot, no, you're just engaged. You have not gotten married yet. That was all in my head.
Yeah.
But I am so happy for you. And how are the kids doing with it?
You know, everything had to be relearned, and we, again, giving space and grace.
Yep.
And it wasn't about their story. It was their experience of it. Yes. So trying to embrace my new relationship, my new orientation, with pride as well, and with being very free and being authentically me now.
Yes.
And then letting them take their time to understand. My fiance has 2 children as well. And so they are a little bit older, and we had to give them the time that they needed. I'm very blessed. I'm very close now with my whole family. And yeah, I think the most challenging part is the dogs are on a custody schedule algorithm that we can't seem to keep together.
Oh, shoot.
And, 5 kids, 5 dogs, it gets a little challenging, but it's fun. And I hope that I'm taking all the measures to make sure that their well-being is in check.
Sounds like you are. It sounds like you are. And that advice in and of itself is just giving grace to the kids, grace to you, grace to your ex-husband, that is such a big
He's a husband. He's not an ex. He's a husband. He was my husband.
Oh, I like that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. His new BFF coined it. So I'm not going to take the credit for it, but
I love that. Okay.
I don't want to call him my ex, especially to my kids. It has a negative.
Yes. Right.
So he's my husband. He's fun.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay. So, oh my gosh, yes. Okay. So anyway, giving grace to your husband. Oh my God, that even sounds easy to say. Because when I said it, you saw that I jerked a little bit, because I was like, oh, I don't want to call it, because he's like the dad. So
Yeah.
that is so cool. Anyway, so that is just beautiful advice for all of us through this pandemic, and every day just giving grace is huge. I just want to go through like a couple of the things here, because so normally when Mike is on, it'll be both of us on here, and Mike takes care of this because he can do two things at once. For me, instead of it being seamless and really like smooth, mine is okay. So now let's go to comment time.
No worries. By the way, I
So,
love your hair. I just have to say that.
oh, thank you so much. Yes, it's pandemic hair. So my girl
Well, no,
was
I love
in,
the blonde.
yeah, my girl was in Michigan. So it was like 17 months. I didn't go and see her. And then I was like, fine, I have to find somebody. So I finally did it. And this is what happened. So thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. So Faye says, what a beautiful example to show your kids that when parents split, it can be amicable and pleasant. Yes. Amen. Okay. Yes. Karen loves the husband. Okay. So now we've got a couple up here. So Tracy, I missed this one. So Tracy says, big or small, we all handle situations differently. We need to have the tools to help us through it. Yes, I think that was a while ago when you were talking about the pandemic and all of us being together in this, but dealing with it separately. Absolutely. Okay. And then Faith says that the light system is what draws me in the most to your type of practice. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I've never heard of it before. That's just brilliant. And I'm hoping anybody like that you don't care that maybe they'll take it, but I feel like anybody that's working with anybody, or I almost want to adopt that just for like friends, because you don't, people feel like they need somebody to talk to. I think this is amazing that they have somebody, a professional that actually gives their personal line and can within 2 hours. That's incredible, Melissa. Okay. So Holly says, such a relatable and encompassing definition of trauma. Thank you for elucidating it so clearly, Melissa. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I asked, actually, because that's what happens is when you hear trauma, you think of just these major things, and then people don't think that they went through trauma if they didn't go through these like the big three or the big whatever.
Oh.
And then there's shame around it because it's like, well, why is it still affecting me? I mean, other people went through so much more, but you're right. That's not what it is.
Well, and that's
at
the thing
all.
is, it's not on a scale of who had more trauma.
Right.
That's why it's so unique and individual, is because like the car accident, same in situation, but we experienced it very differently.
Yeah. Great example. Faith also says, with the multiple modalities you are offering, it makes you very unique, but also so flexible and adaptable to each individual. Yeah, that's what I'm getting, Faith. Like it sounds so cool, because I thought that it was just rec therapy, like just that's what's going to happen. But you have so much when you were talking about the cognitive behavioral therapy, all this kind of stuff that you can bring in. And the fact that you're building trust as opposed to just being, I trust you because you're the professional, where most people don't trust you because you're the professional. And you know what I mean? Like you don't have that bond.
Well, I'm a forever student. I'm that person that is going to keep going back, keep learning more. Like when COVID hit and Embrace took a hit, I decided, okay, I need to do something else in the interim. So let's become a CPR instructor. So I became a CPR instructor. I wrote 2 more books.
Awesome.
So again, and they have a therapeutic nature to them. So I will.
Are they children's books as well?
They are. And I'm working on a novel.
Nice. I didn't know.
Yeah. So,
okay.
And then I just keep finding it, like, it's really funny. It's like the things that you resist the most. So I remember being in high school and somebody saying, you should really go into English. You should write. And I was like, no, I'm never going to write. And then I remember being that child and be like, I'd never want to be a counselor. I never want to go into therapies. Like, this is bogus.
Wow.
And now my life, like completely, I'm a big geek. Like I bought the DSM-5 just for giggles to read it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My Amazon account is mostly books.
I love it.
And mental health books. And I'm studying addictions now through Laurier. I'm studying to get into my master's at Windsor. I'm looking at getting my certification in cognitive behavioral therapy now as well.
Amazing.
And just keep going. And which I am mindful. And some people may say that's a trauma response. That busyness.
Okay.
I've worked through it though.
Okay.
And now for me, it's empowerment. It's the more that I can bring and develop for Embrace Rec, the more I can specifically take each client on an individual basis, custom create their programs to what their needs are, because Mary's needs are going to be very different than Joe's needs.
Yes. Yeah.
And some may want TIR. That may really ignite them and be like, okay, those memories, I'm ready for this. Some might not be at that stage where they're ready. And they're like, hey, maybe I can go kayaking for an afternoon and we can really start talking about this stuff.
Yes.
Or maybe I want to play a board game. I really love games, but I grew up where everyone just expected the kids to play sports and we did this herding. But that wasn't their interest level. So I'll do an assessment to find out exactly what their interest level is. What do we want to do? And go from there. There are several different assessments I can do from the therapeutic way of providing services in my company.
My gosh,
so
I love it.
As for just backtrack, I did say about the books.
Yes.
You know that I wrote my first book. It is out now.
Yes.
And it's called The Brave Little Brown Bear. And it's about a bear cub having his journey through his first night alone and a storm comes in. And it's about helping kids overcome fear. The second book is called The Magic of the Forget-Me-Nots, and it takes place in a hospital. And in that story, again, I try to aim towards things that may cause angst in a child. I talk about a dementia patient. I talk about a child having an injury and a newborn being brought into the world and what different children could experience. The third book, which will turn into a series, it will be called The Beastie Brothers. One book is done, and it's about my dog, Caesar, meeting his Beastie Brothers, the 4 West Highland White Terriers that he now lives with. And it's about a blended family from the perspective of the dog. Each dog, once I get back to that writing, will have their own headline. So they will each get a story in their honor. One will be about a dog being sick, jealousy, bullying, and bullying, being sick. There's 4 other ones. I forget what they are.
Yeah.
And as for the novel, I started it a few years ago and it popped back up, and it's about a female military vet that comes home with PTSD. And there's some different things, but that could be in the works for a long time. I just kind of play with that here and there.
Okay. So. Oh my gosh. I'm so impressed with you. It's unbelievable. And all of this has transpired in, like, what's the time frame? Like 4 or 5 years?
The very first book happened about 6 years ago.
Already?
The first one, yeah. Oh. It came out in 2018, but I wrote it prior and just kind of left it. And it was because my son was terrified. He had his cousin babysit him one night, and his cousin told him there were monsters under the bed. And so he created a fear. It traumatized him, literally.
Yeah.
And for 2 years straight, he would tuck into our room, terrified. So I wrote this little story to help him. And my husband at the time was like, you should get this published. And so I did, and it's had some great successes. And then when my life transitions, and my beautiful partner encouraged me to continue writing. And so then the Beastie Brothers has come in now, and looking forward to writing the next installments.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And not to put your daughter on the spot, but is she doing the illustrations for it?
I'm trying. She's an incredible artist.
Yeah.
Both of them, actually. My middle daughter is quite the artist as well. She has a different technique. She's more into the anime and the different type of artistry. I've asked. I can only push so much. They're still kids, right?
Yeah.
So I can hold out a little longer. Hopefully someday we will collaborate together.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. And then okay, so let's do this just real quick. So Holly says this. Okay, so this is when we were talking about the different things that you were doing with your clients. Martial arts as an adaptive coping strategy and healing mechanism all the way. Awesome. Ed has a question. He wants to know, would rec therapy help someone whose anger is directed inward?
I would do not only rec therapy, but probably cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a new area that I'm studying right now. And yeah, there are different ways. Again, I share a lot of my personal experiences because I want to connect with people and know that I was a very angry person. And I know what that's like to hurt. So right now, I am very proud to say that I'm not that person anymore. And I went through a lot, not just that, but losing my best friend. She died when she was 36, when I was 36 and she was 38. She had a heart attack.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Very traumatic experience that led me into a depression.
Wow.
And I was on a heavy dose of medication for depression for several years. And I'm very happy that I don't have a stigma against medication, but for me, I had really bad side effects. And I don't use anything now. In fact, my fiance is very much into oils and has introduced me to a very holistic way of care for myself. So even for my nerves today of coming on to my very first podcast, she's oiling me up and she's putting some really potent oils on that really helped me. And
Beautiful.
So to go from somebody who really had to use medication to regulate my mood to now being 2 years without using medication and in an incredible space is huge.
That is beautiful. Yeah, we're the same way. We're not against anything. If you need medicine to heal, absolutely. But it is nice and encouraging to know that there's other options out there and that there is the ability to go to the other side from trauma, that it doesn't have to follow you for the rest of it. It's not a life sentence. That is so beautiful. And then Faith has a really good question, which I was going to ask. Are you accepting new patients right now, or do you have a wait list? How does that work? If somebody's listening right now and is like, oh my gosh, I've needed somebody, but I haven't known, and I'm just so connecting. Are they able to connect with you? Are you taking on?
Absolutely. So what's really exciting is I finally broke down because I had my hand in so many different pots. I finally broke down and had my website rebuilt by a company in Toronto.
Wow.
And yeah, so I have a brand new website, which actually has a link that people can go book appointments right there, pay for the session right there. And the cool thing about my job is I'm not looking to keep clients forever. My goal is let's get you to a healthy place and move you on.
Thank you.
So I just recently had some spaces open up. So I am accepting new clients right now. And I'm really hoping to get a lot more children, to be honest. Teenagers especially. As we're coming out of this pandemic or wherever we're at, the reality is kids are suffering more and more. And we keep saying they're resilient, it's okay. But they're not as resilient as we think, or they wouldn't be coming to my office when they're in their 40s.
Right. Good point, dear Lord. Good point.
And as I want to be there to prepare kids that are going into, again, another year of uncertainty, another year of wearing masks, of being socially distanced from their friends. Our responsibility as parents, as the adults in their life, as coaches, as the teachers, which I highly love all of my teacher friends, is let's prepare in advance for them so that they can have a successful year this year, because the anxiety and depression in our youth is so high that it hurts to see the stats. I checked the stats on the Canadian Mental Health Association website. I did again today. I could give stats. I'm not going to. They're painful to see. They're painful to see what we're all going through this. But the difference is with the way we can regulate our emotions is that maturation plays a part in that. How old we are, where our brain development is. Kids let's be honest. Kids have hormones.
Right.
Kids have fears. Kids
Mhm.
don't know how to communicate properly. So I do sessions where sometimes I'm just teaching families how to have proper communication skills,
Wow. Thank you. Wow.
because it does come from a whole system too. When you're working with a child, what are they developing in the hierarchy? Where is their place?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important that we identify if there are triggers in the other areas of the family that this kid is feeding off of too. So a
Wow.
lot of
Mhm.
times I have had where I work with more than one person in a family.
Okay.
So yes, the broad answer is yes. I am very excited that I'm taking new clients, but I'm very
Um,
passionate about helping kids, especially
yeah, I
because
can
I
tell.
know I don't want to be that. I don't want kids to ever be feeling the way I felt.
Yes. Yeah. And going through it for so long. You said something right at the very beginning of the
Yeah.
show when you were talking about what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
You said the secrecy. And for some reason, call me, I don't know, like
Mm-hmm.
for some reason that really jumped out at me as something that I never really, I mean, you get it, but I never really thought about how that would end up like translating into the whole rest of your adulthood.
Well, yeah, it became where I didn't want to tell people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to tell people about who I really was.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it came to my sexual identity, I didn't
Yeah.
want to tell people who that was.
Yeah.
There was that shame of secrecy, and that was planted in a very young child, and how I couldn't have a voice. So
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time, I struggled with that. And
Wow.
it wasn't until I was so blessed that this friend invited me to this workshop that it really put me in a new direction. And it's like I just keep adding, because now, how many can I help? I
Yeah.
just want to be somebody that can make a stand in an advocacy for kids or people that are stuck in a trauma.
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's so amazing. And the fact that you're willing to talk to families. Mike has talked about that with me a lot about how really having that family counseling kind of thing really needs to happen and really needs to happen. In my opinion, it should be happening anyway. Like it should just be one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that it's like, you just add that, even if it's a yearly thing, that it's just like, oh, you have to go and get your physical. Oh, and then you also have to go for like your family counseling
Your
session.
family trauma, your counseling session. Like when I think of it, my experience of trauma was the physical and mental warfare that I went through.
Mhm.
But what was the impact on my mom or on my
Right.
family members? I
Right.
know that my stepdad struggled hugely. His trauma turned into more trauma. Okay.
Wow.
So, families that have traumatic experiences happening, you look at COVID right now, people that can't grieve properly,
Right.
families that have really been impacted financially, there's trauma there.
Yes.
We don't have an escape plan yet. So rather than create an escape plan, let's just dig deep. Let's get out there, help as many as we can, get them fully built up with a toolkit that can, even if it's a light system, if they go into that school, a lot of kids are equipped with phones and they're like,
Right.
this is not working today. I'm mentally not here. And they send me a red. Okay, go to your counselor at the school.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to come to your aid, but I'll encourage you to get the help that you need,
Yes.
or we'll do it together, because nobody has to be alone.
That's beautiful. And that's such, I love the fact you said that at the beginning too, or somewhere during this beautiful conversation when you were saying, if I'm not equipped to be able to handle whatever the situation is when that red comes in, that you want to be able to connect with your partners in this.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, because that's the other scary thing is that some people are, you're worried about finding the right person because you feel like you're going to be locked in, married to that therapist. Like, I need to
Mm-hmm.
find the right person. And then you feel like you can't go elsewhere, or you don't know if what you offer is going to help. But if you're able to see that like, no, you know what? I think that you probably need something that is like Banna,
Mhm.
like, okay,
Mhm.
that's more, their specialty. Go and see them there, or go. That's beautiful, because then your ego's not in this. You just want to help these children.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so thankful to have the connections in the community that I have. And because sometimes too, I may come across a client that has me triggered. As much as I work through triggers, if I can't help somebody,
Yeah.
or I'm just at a roadblock, I can reach out to my partners too, because that's the other part of this puzzle piece, is looking at the frontline workers and looking at the people, that the other social workers and the other people that maybe need to learn to play again too, and not have the heaviness of everything that's going on.
Yes. Wow. Oh, Melissa, this has been fabulous. Okay, let me go through just a few more before we start wrapping up. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so Faith says, the back to school season this year is going to be very difficult, and I can't help but wonder what these kids will be prepared for mentally. Yeah, and that's amazing. So if you do have children, reach out to Melissa, and even just maybe talk to her and see if it would be a good match, because I feel like, how good would the parents feel knowing that they have you available for anything that's going to come up, instead of having something come up and then have to deal with it? That's beautiful. Faith says, yes, Leigh Ann, why is our government not investing more in our mental health services? Absolutely. Absolutely. We could talk about that for years, really. And I'm hoping that it's coming. I'm hoping that maybe that's part of what this pandemic was all about, is maybe showing how it's affecting our mental health, and maybe that will start changing. But again, that's a conversation for another day. Ed says, we are as sick as our secrets. I remember it was the hardest thing I ever had done. Trusting a person with my biggest secret. That is where my healing first began. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Ed, I just want you to know that your podcast today was really inspirational. And I really want you, I know I don't even see you, but keep on your journey. It gets easier.
That's so beautiful. Yes. Yeah. Melissa, if you join our book club, he's in our book club
Yes.
too. So you'll be able to
Awesome.
meet him.
Awesome.
Tracy says, I'd like to see more resources in our communities easily accessible for people. Sometimes people don't know where to go. Absolutely. And you know what? That's one of the things that I was talking to Melissa before the show, and I was just saying, like, this is a really good podcast. Like, I am really proud of what we're doing. We're not great with the marketing, so we don't get it out to enough people. We need to start doing it, because these are the conversations that need to be coming up. Because I was blessed enough to know Melissa prior to the podcast, but had I not, I wouldn't have known what recreational therapy was. Whenever I hear therapy, I hear sitting on a couch, crying, and then leaving, and then feeling still, no better. Or working through the stuff and doing the things, like, not knowing that all of these things are out there is phenomenal.
Well, and I think for people that are struggling as well, that stigma of looking for resources.
Right.
And with rec therapy and with Embrace Rec, we want to come to you. Yes. I don't have an office space. I come right to you. I can be, if it's recreational therapy, I could be meeting you at a local partner. If it's TIR or we're doing trauma, I could be coming right into your living room, because I want you comfortable. So that is a big thing that makes us unique. And we're going to be building more. We're going to be reaching out more. You will be seeing more of my marketing. I'm trying. The struggle is real.
Yes.
But
please do.
Getting people to understand that there are other resources. And like I said, again, if I'm not a fit, that's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. But I'll put you to somebody else. Yeah. Because if you need that help, we need, as the people in the community that are trained in these modalities, we need to come together for the greater good of everyone else.
Yes. Yes. Well said. And for any of you guys that are watching this, check the comments because I did put Melissa's website in there, so you can check that out as well. Holly here says, it sounds like Melissa's approach is very centered on trust, accompaniment, and empowerment, inspiring. As a frontline worker, a lot of what you're saying is resonating. Well, thank you, Holly, for saying that. Absolutely. Tracy says, Ed, secrets have been things we talk about in our home. Nothing is a secret, and always talking is the first step. Tracy, that's amazing. But I don't feel like that's the norm.
There's other variables that play into that. And again, another time we could talk about addictions. That's what I'm also studying, because at the other end of the pandemic, we're going to see an increase in these types of things, including dependency on technology for our kids. Yes. So we don't have the resources or the abilities as much. We've been really crunched into a tight space during this pandemic.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, we will have you back if you will come back.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
And I hope that you enjoyed your first podcast.
This was fun.
I can't believe it was your first. You did so amazing. Like, I felt like I was jumbled through it because I'm like, oh, she's just so cool and like knows everything. That it was fantastic. And okay, so yeah, I'm also going to link, when we have this up here, I will also link her website, so you can see this. And where are you at? You're on Facebook and you're on Instagram?
I'm on Facebook. I am on Instagram. Apparently I have a Twitter account. One of my kids set it up for me, but I don't know how to use it. So don't find me on Twitter yet. I will learn. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, great.
I have different social medias to really try to get out there. So thank you so much for having me and for asking me to come on. I love your podcast. And I'm joining your book club.
Yes, I will send you the link. Okay. Awesome. And thank you, Melissa. Thank you. This was just better than I thought it was going to be. And I thought it was going to be pretty good. I feel like I said that about Ed too. Like, I'm just so impressed how vulnerable and how open it's funny because I give like a little something before where I just ask questions, and one of the questions is there anything off limits? And both of you were like, nope, go ahead, ask me anything. And I think that's what makes this so amazing. So thank you for being vulnerable, thank you for being honest, and thank you for doing this and for sharing and doing it with the children. Like, I think that is so amazing. So any of you that are listening, if you think that your family needs this, great. If you know of somebody, please just share it. And we can all use this. This is so wonderful. So thank you, Melissa. For any of you that are just listening to it and hopping on now, this is First Day Pod. Actually, we started the name of the podcast was because it was the first day of the rest of our lives, because tomorrow it always starts. And today is August 1st. So I am super excited that we're starting a new month with this amazing episode. I am going to do better at pushing this all out because I want everybody to know about what you are doing. And again, if you guys want to join our book club, it is Monday nights at 8:00 Eastern. We do it on Zoom. You do have to DM me or email us at firstdaypod@gmail.com, because we want to make sure that it's anybody is able to come, but I don't want people that are just going to hop on and harass people, which I've heard happens on Zoom. So I make this a private link. So that's the only reason why you have to DM us. We're not going to add you into any other kind of, mailings or anything. You'll just get the link for that. So I hope to see you guys there. Melissa, I can't wait to see you tomorrow at book club. And thank you to everybody that was in here. You guys were amazing. The comments were fantastic. The questions were even better. So thank you. And take care, you guys. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
Bye.